Kip Shubert is a warrior on purpose. I think you're really going to get a lot out of this conversation with Kip, who shares his story of addiction, of recovery, and all about what he's doing now with his program, Warriors on Purpose. We also get the opportunity to meet his beautiful wife, Cindy, who shares her story a little bit as well. Here we go with Kip Shubert.
Here, we want to show you what's possible in the world of sobriety. We introduce you to the various tools, programs, and resources available, because there are way more options than you may even realize. We want you to find the one that works for you.
And we do it through people. People who share their pathway to recovery and will help you find your path to freedom. Because getting sober can feel hard enough. You don't have to do it alone. I'm Sarah Roberts.
And I'm Roger DeVoe, and this is Sobriety Starts Here.
Well, here we go with Kip Shubert, founder of Warriors on Purpose. Welcome, Kip.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy to see you today. This is going to be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I first of all want to get right into it with you. You run a program called Warriors on Purpose. I want to find out more about what is Warriors on Purpose, who is it for, and what is the experience of going through your program?
All right, Warriors on Purpose is a spiritual-based recovery program. It's a 10-lesson. I recommend doing a 10-week lesson. We're going to get to the point where I also offer support with that to walk you through it. Right now, it's just a kind of a recovery survival kit is what we're calling it. That you can use as a first-time person in recovery. You can use kind of to go back and always to do maintenance with that. Maybe you're wanting to explore some of the faith-based or spirituality part with recovery. And that's what it's for. And then also there's going to be, we offer a membership side that's, it's once you're into recovery, I guess it's whether, no matter what level of recovery that you are in or you're at, it allows you, because like I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm staying sober. It's like I did my 90 meetings in 60 days and I did everything as fast as I could. And I began to look around the rooms in AA, and it was like, these guys would say, I've been here 35 years, and they could tell me how many minutes they had been sober, but they looked absolutely miserable. And so I began to think there's got to be more to it than this. And so I began to seek, more for myself than just being in AA or just being sober. And I wanted to live with intent, and I wanted to make an impact. And it just my life kind of evolved into leading people to a purpose. I think when we have a purpose, it really helps us stay away from things that are bad for us. Because for me, drinking really resulted from feeling like I had no idea why I was here. Mm-hmm. Like I had no purpose. And I really tried to find that in other people and other things, which always failed me and always disappointed me. And so I've just kind of, the Warriors on Purpose has evolved from just the recovery blog to being able to use my recovery, my story with alcoholism to impact people to get through any obstacles and to really be their best version of who they can be. Whether it's in my classrooms, whether it's on the field as a coach, whether it's in recovery circles, wherever I go.
And what I love too about Warriors on Purpose is it's a real community. I mean, you've really developed a beautiful community around it. And can I ask, so is the recovery survival kit you mentioned, is that a freebie on your website? Is that something that anybody can access for free?
Yeah, it's just a PDF download that people can get to. So they can just download it, and it just walks you through 10 lessons on really how to recover. And again, we're going to get to a point where I offer that as a program that I can walk through with you and help coach you through. But right now, it's just something that they can use, and I just call it a survival kit. So, and I also make sure that they understand with that. I give them a little preface letter with it that it's just a supplement to what they're doing right now, whatever their program is, whether it's 12-step, faith-based. whatever they choose to do. It can be something that they can use initially and then go back and go through time and time again to kind of help them.
I love that, because I think that no matter what, any of us that are looking to get sober or who are in recovery, we all need more than just that one thing. You know, it's really beautiful to be able to cultivate a real practice in our recovery, really utilizing all of the different tools that are out there and accessible
Right.
for us. So I think this is just a wonderful way to supplement. And I'm wondering, can you share with us maybe one or two of the different 10 points or 10 steps in the
like the first 2 or 3 weeks deals with being able to find or understanding what faith is, being able to find your faith, to define what that might be, even if it may not necessarily be in God per se, but being able to find and understand really what faith means and what it is. Because a lot of people attach, when you say faith, they automatically think it has to be God. And so if they don't believe in God, then it just throws them for a loop or leaves them out. And I don't want to do that.
Right.
And it goes through creating boundaries. That was a big thing for me. It goes through forgiveness. It goes through how to maintain and exercise a plan of recovery, to get rid of a lot of the, I call it taking out the trash, getting rid of the things that we need to get rid of, a complete lifestyle change. And again, it's not something you can go through probably in 10 lessons and all of a sudden you're recovered. It's one of those things where it sets a foundation for you to live those things out, daily as you go.
Absolutely. And it's not like you just read them and, read the 10 things and all of a sudden you feel like you can even imagine that you're even getting into recovery. I mean, this is about working the plan. It's about taking out the trash. That's going to take some time to be able to clear all of that out. That's taking out toxic relationships. That's, people and things that are not supporting your sobriety. That's a lot more than just, reading something and thinking, okay, I can take care of that. No, that takes a lot of effort for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's a misconception a lot of people have when they first jump into recovery. Because I know I did, and, I thought that it would be something that I could learn. And when I entered rehab, I thought it would be something I could learn. I could go out and drink like a gentleman and I'd be fine. But it's something that you just grow through. And I think it's something that you can continually work on, day after day through the rest of your life. And it can lead to such great things. Mm-hmm. But it does take the work. And it's like with anything, if you don't do the work, you're not going to get the results. So
absolutely. And if you don't do the work, you don't get to call yourself a warrior. So for people who want to find out more about Warriors on Purpose, and about you, Kip, where are the best places to find you?
Probably, right now I have a kipshubert.com. That's my blog site. So that would be a good reference. Probably the best thing would be the Kip Shubert Warriors on Purpose Facebook group or Facebook page. Of course, we have an Instagram and Twitter and all that. And then the website, when it actually launches, will be warriorsonpurpose.com.
Fantastic. And I'll include all of those links below this video as well. So
Awesome.
Kip, what I want to do with you now is to really give people a sense, now that they know where to find you and they know that you're obviously sober and thriving in your recovery, what's the story? How did all of this come about for you? If you can walk us through as far back as you want to go and then walk us all the way through, and that'll bring us full circle to where Warriors on Purpose is today.
Okay. Well, for me, man, it's alcoholism and addiction is just crazy. It's insanity. And, for me, I grew up, my dad was a Baptist minister. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And there are some really, for me, unsettling things that happened between them that I was kind of in the middle of, and really caused me to, I think that's where the void in me began as far as my self-worth and esteem and things. But I went through, high school and all that kind of stuff. I didn't go to prom. I didn't go to parties. I didn't, I was at church and I was at school, and I excelled in athletics and I excelled in the classroom. And I knew that I was supposed to go to college to be a youth minister. That's what I wanted to do. And one thing that kind of began then, for me, for really a long period of my life, was the manifestation of fear for me. And really it was, you know, that manifested in my life as feeling unworthy, not good enough, like I couldn't do it. And so I quit just about on every single thing that I undertook. And I went to Oklahoma Baptist University for a semester, dropped out because I thought there was no way that I could live up to the standard. And for me, it's like, you know, I looked at my dad and it was like, if a man that was, I considered to be the most godly man that I knew, if he could fall, then, you know, there's no way that I could make it. And I was a very good soccer player, and the college coaches that were recruiting me out of high school, one of them still wanted me after a year, and so gave me a scholarship, and I went to play college soccer. And, you know, the next best thing to do was teach. Of course, being an athlete, just major in PE, that'd be good. And I thought, hey, I'm still reaching youth, so it's the next best thing. And my first drink actually was after my first year in college, and I at OBU, then I came home and worked, and me and my brother went out to my grandparents, who both sets of ours lived out in the Panhandle on farms. And my younger brother had, you know, he's a great guy, but normal teenage kid. He was partying a little bit and things like that, you know. And so I remember we drove to like the Love's Country store, and they sold it to anybody. And we both bought a 2-liter of Sun Country wine cooler and finished a 2-liter apiece. And, you know, that was it. And then for me, I mean, I didn't realize it then and for a long time until actually I got sober. But every single time after that, I didn't just drink just to have a few or because of the taste. I drank to get drunk, period. I was a go big or go home guy.
Yeah. And do you mean when you said that was it, when you drank that 2-liter cooler, do you mean that was it? Like you got that feeling and you were like, damn, like I'm going to go after this feeling again?
Yeah. I felt like I was Superman, you know, and that's what I was always seeking after anyway. And I just always sought after it the wrong ways for so long. But, you know, I don't know for me, it was like the weekends and parties and things out of season, because it wasn't a very quick progression for me as far as alcoholism. Right. It took a long, long time. And during season, I was very committed to playing, and I excelled at the college level. I achieved just about everything that you could achieve, and the individual award and everything, recognition that you could get, but I still always felt it never was enough. I mean, I wanted something more, and that would just proceed. I got married my junior year in college, and had 2 kids very quickly. I thought being a father and all that kind of stuff, you know, and it kind of got in the way of my professional pursuits with soccer. I gave that up after a little bit, and just to come home and teach and be a dad, and thought that would be enough. But then again, I felt lacking. But still, every weekend was Friday and Saturday night was getting drunk. Holidays, I mean, anytime the Oklahoma Sooners were on TV playing football or we were tailgating, that was it. I mean, so I look back now and it's like every single social occasion or activity, even if it was just fishing or something, you know, it was a chance to get drunk.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, were you drinking with your wife at the time? You said you'd gotten married and.
Yeah, we would drink on weekends or things like that. But again, I didn't drink during the week. If we went out to eat, I didn't, you know, I mean, if we were going to go out afterwards, I would drink, but if not, because I like sweet tea or Dr. Pepper a lot better than I ever did beer, because that was my thing. But again, it was just, you got that escape to where you felt on top of the world, you know? Mm-hmm. And, you know, that went from like in my early 20s, I got divorced after 10 years, so I was probably early 30s. And really the relationship wasn't bad. It just, I was unfulfilled in it and I checked out. And so I went to search for more.
And it's like you would have been unfulfilled in whatever relationship.
Yeah, it did. It's nothing. She's still, we get along fantastically, and she's a great lady. And nothing to do with her. It's all me. And, I went out thinking I've got to find, the bombshell, the
one. Yeah,
the one. And she's got to look like she would belong to Hugh Hefner or something like that, And so, found that, and after a while got married again, and we had a blended family. And that was another 10-year relationship. My first marriage was 10 years, and the second one was 10 years. But we drank a lot more together. My second wife and I drank a lot more together than the first. And, again, it was concerts and football games and holidays and weekends. I mean, we lived in a cul-de-sac where everybody had a swimming pool. And so we would just rotate parties. And it's just, one of those things where I began to look forward to holidays and the football games and the concerts and the weekends because I could drink. Yeah. And I didn't realize that at the time, but that's what I was doing. And at the end of that second marriage, it was very volatile. It was like fire and gas. It was like matches and gasoline, or it was crazy all the time. And
was there ever a point in that marriage, that second marriage, that you questioned your drinking? Because you're kind of saying like it just was happening. You were looking forward to weekends and reasons to drink, but you weren't really understanding why you were craving that. Was there ever a point that in the quiet moments you would say to yourself, "What's going on here? Like this isn't working"?
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sad thing. It's just, I thought I was in control. I thought that I mean, people called us Ken and Barbie. And I thought that I thought that was it, even though I still felt unfulfilled. I thought I then began to think that something was wrong with me. And
can you share with us when you're saying that you were feeling unfulfilled? Can you put words to those feelings?
Yeah, it's just like, no matter how pretty I thought she was, or no matter what level of success I would attain in my profession, or the money that we had, or the trips that we took, or anything like that, after we would go through that or experience that or live that out, I still felt lacking. I mean, it's like, okay, that was fun, but it didn't hit the spot. It didn't, I mean, I just felt like there was more to me than what there was. But then again, I thought that was all me, that I wasn't good enough. And that was kind of beat into my head in that second marriage, that I wasn't worthy, that I could do so much more, but I always quit and never stuck to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as the more I became even depressed in a way, and feeling even less and less and less of a man, the more I would drink and the more parties we could go to and the more opportunities I could find to go out and do that, the more at least for an evening, I would feel like I was on top of the world.
Yes.
It's one of those things where on the outside, people would look at me and think, he's successful. He's got it together. Mm-hmm. Look at his life. And on the inside or behind closed doors, it was just a total nightmare and a wreck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. All right. So keep going. So now you've ended your second marriage, and what happens next?
Well, at the end of the marriage, I think there's like maybe 2 years before we got divorced. She started talking about having a baby, and I was just like, there is no way that's not going to help. It's and there have been some infidelity and stuff, and I was like, it's not going to make it any better. And I love to make deals with God, so I made a deal with her. I was like, if you can, keep it together for a year, then I'll consider it. And
you mean keep it together, not go outside the marriage?
Right. And if that can happen and things get better, then I'll think about it. And a whole year passed, and things were a little bit better, as far as I knew. And we got pregnant and had a little girl. And, within probably 6 months after her birth, it was just right back to the same old things. And that's when the wheels began to come off at that point for me. Because I did think, okay, we've got this baby. It's going to bring us together. It's going to fulfill me. It's going to give me everything that I wanted. And I'm not going to do to her what I did to the boys and to my oldest daughter. And they're going to have a family. She's going to have a family and her mom and dad and all that kind of stuff. But it just unraveled real quick. And, it wasn't pretty at the end. And so there's just, without getting into it too much, I don't want to say anything bad about her or out other people, but it was very difficult mentally on me. And I began to drink more and to more excess. And then we got divorced, separated and divorced, and I moved into an apartment, and, I had my little one half the time. She was 2, 1.5, 2 years old then. And my boys lived with me. They were still finishing high school in the apartment. And, it just started at that point. I think I felt, okay, you're 2 times failed at marriage. You obviously aren't worth anything. Those things that's what resonated for me in my life. And it stopped being just weekends and football games and concerts and parties. And it started being, Monday night football at Buffalo Wild Wings. And then it started being Thursday night because it was karaoke night somewhere. And that, and I was trying to think, I was like 40. That was 2011, I think. And so in that next 3-year period, it went from weekends to, at the end, it was 7 days a week. And I wasn't a drinker who liked to drink by myself at home. Of course, I always pre-gamed, is what I called it. It's those insane things that you think about when you're actively drinking. It's like, if I can drink, 6 tall boys, see, that gives me this many. And so when I get to happy hour, I can have 15 more. And I had bartenders that would keep me on happy hour prices all night long. And, because I needed to be around people. And it's so weird because, it's like this is going to be the night that I find it. And I'm going to get drunk and go have fun, and I'm going to find it. And, then you wake up the next morning and it's like, you didn't find it. And then it just, it's that in rehab, I learned insanity was doing the same thing, expecting different results. And it's just, those stupid things I hated in early recovery that I learned that were so true.
Oh, totally. Can you tell us, again, I'm loving learning more about you. Can you put words to what it was, what you were looking for in those nights of drinking?
With that void that I had in me from back in my high school age, early college days. And this is kind of where the spirituality kicks in for me. I always thought my identity or who I was or my self-worth through either athletics or somebody else. And so I thought that I would go out to a bar and I'd be around people, and that the one, again, for the third time, would walk in and that would be it. And I would be swept away to some magical place where everything would be happy and there would be no more, pain and sorrow and suffering. And because I would just latch on to, whoever I thought or whatever I thought could do that.
Yeah.
And then in that process, I would suck the life out of whatever it was, and then I couldn't figure out why they didn't want to be around me or why I wore out my welcome in that situation or job or whatever it was. And it was because I was sucking everything out of it, taking and taking and taking, and I wasn't putting anything back into it. Because I thought
you didn't have anything to give, right?
Yeah. And I thought if the more affirmation I got, or that as long as someone else would say I was okay, then I would be okay. And, again, I had no idea that being able to find what I was looking for was with me the whole time. It was right there. I thought I needed it from somebody else. The way I kind of described it is my life became just kind of gray, very dull. And drinking would put a little color into it, at least for a few hours every day.
Oh my gosh, I relate to that so strongly. Drinking put a little color in it. Yes, when you're sitting there day in and day out feeling like garbage, it's like when we can go out and drink and just kind of let loose a little bit and feel a little bit more, take the edges off, soften the edges a little bit. I get that. Can I ask you, was there any point during that period? So now you're all of a sudden drinking 7 days a week. Are there any whispers coming? Are there any moments of clarity for you? Are there any moments where that inner voice, that inner critic, that inner knowing is saying, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, that happened a lot during that period. I mean, you'd get up and you'd look in the mirror in the morning, and I would just be like, God, what are you doing to yourself? You're better than this. And this is going to stop. I'm not going to do this anymore. My kids need me. I was on the path to losing everything. Financially, we become so irresponsible, and especially when you're that far gone into alcohol, and my new things were not good. And so and I always tell myself, this is it. But then again, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I would find myself right back on my bar seat because,
Can I ask, so just out of curiosity, because I was someone who, yes, I drank out socially with people, but I sometimes would sort of put a lid on it, and I went home and drank in private. That doesn't sound like your story. Do you know how much you would on average spend at the bar, even on those happy hour prices?
We had to do that in rehab, calculate that up, and it's been a while, but I would say probably I was spending a good $250 a week.
Yeah.
And most of the time I would go home, and if I would try to leave the bar in time before the convenience store closed, so I could get more if I didn't have enough already. And I would sit out in my garage at the end and drink and smoke and fall asleep on the couch. I turned my garage into a really cool sports bar, kind of with neon signs and flat screens and speakers and an actual bar and everything in there. And
wow.
Of course, I was the only one there most of the time. But
what a commitment to your habit. Sorry, I cut you off there. What did you say?
I said I was usually the only one there, but it was still cool.
Best bar in town.
Yeah.
Only one person there.
That's right. Party of one.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So you've got the bar going, you've got the garage going, you've got your kids, everything's kind of falling apart. You're spending $1,000 a month on alcohol plus more that you're drinking at home. When does the rock bottom happen, or is that still a little ways away?
No, that kind of got to the point in 2013, 2014. And, being a teacher and a coach, that kind of behavior just doesn't go with the other. And I just by the grace of God, the principal that I had at the time, we had been friends for 20 plus years. We started teaching together our first year, and and he's an awesome guy. I don't think he understood that he was enabling me, but he would cover for me. And the year before I went into rehab, or the year I went into rehab, I went in at spring break. I had missed 47 days of school, and we weren't even through 3 semesters yet, or three 9 weeks yet. And so that's just that's a crazy amount of days missed. I would usually miss at least 2 days a week.
And can I ask, so when you're doing that, so you're waking up hungover, or are you calling in, like, how are you managing?
The bad thing for teachers now, for me, it was at the time. I mean, it's very convenient if you weren't me then, but you can just call it on your phone. You can use your phone and you put it in through your phone, and you don't have to talk to anybody. And, I would get, screw it. And I would put in for 4 days in a row and go on a binge. And then I would come back for 2 or 3, then I might miss one. And it was just random, My colleagues and co-teachers were, they were concerned about me. And, I had joint custody of my little one, and she was 5 years old, I think, at the time. And I started making excuses not to see her, not to get her. I would call my oldest son to come pick me up sometimes from the bar, and he got to the point where he was calling my parents and saying, you guys, you be the parents, I can't do this. it's always emotional for me on that part. But
Oh my gosh. Feel free to take a moment there, Kip. I don't blame you one bit. That is
that's,
hard. And I get it. I get it. I
I
know
think,
we all have that kind of shame.
yeah, I think the worst was, it was Christmas Eve, and I'd had camp, and my boys were there, and they, you know, and of course we've been out Christmas shopping all day, but I knew that I was going to the bar that night anyway. You know, I just didn't care. You know, I guess you had that one part that cared and the other part that didn't care, and that part that didn't care over always won. And I remember her just, you know, crying and screaming, and she grabbed onto me and was like, "Daddy, don't, you know, don't leave me." And I just was like, "It'll be okay. I'll be back. I'll see you in the morning." And just shoved her off, and, you know, to one of my kids, my older kids, and just took off. And for that, not even to, you know, it bothered you deep inside. And so, but it's just at that point, I know now that was just the alcoholism, you know, just raging. You know, and so it caused me kind of to abandon, you know, all my kids. From that Christmas to that spring break, I didn't go to school much at all. Financially, I was losing it. I still didn't think I had a problem though. And I still thought that if I made a decision and I was strong enough and I was serious enough, that I could quit, and I could drink responsibly, and I just needed to get it together, you know, and shape up. And my family got involved, and I went off on, I don't remember the suicide threat, but I went off on a long binge, and one of my family members had called, and I was like, I don't even, you know, no one cares. I should just die, I guess. I don't remember saying it to them. But my brother and sister showed up at my house the next morning. They lived in Tulsa at the time, and I was in Oklahoma City. And they showed up at the house, and they didn't know any better, but they just took me to a hospital, and they told them that I had threatened suicide. And so they put me into a psych unit. And the unit that they put me into, and I thought I was going to detox, is what I thought. But they put me into a psych ward. I remember when I first walked in, and I'd kind of, you know, sobered up at that point. They were taking my belt from me and my shoelaces and, you know, all this stuff. And it was a co-ed wing, locked down. And bless her heart, this lady who was in a hospital gown, she had no legs, scooted out onto the floor from her room and was throwing her feces on the wall. And I was just like, whoa, what in the hell have I got myself into?
Wow.
Of course, they didn't know that, my brother and sister didn't know that it was going to be like that. They thought it was detox too. And, you know, after about 2 days in there, I mean, it was really crazy, but it made me angry. I was calling family members, "You've got to get me out of here," telling them what was going on. My roommate would walk up and down between the beds, rapping to himself all night long, and totally incoherent. And the first night they were there, they gave me a cocktail of drugs to take out of a Dixie cup, and I was just out. I mean, I was I was crazy. The next night I was like, "I'm not doing that. You can do whatever you want to me, but I'm not taking those." And I would just call them and say, "Get me out of here. This is not what you think." And they just thought I was trying to get out, you know, making up stuff. And about the 4th day in there, one of the nurses brought me into the doctor, and they said, "He doesn't need to be in here. He needs to be in a rehab for alcoholism. He's not like everybody else." And so they got me discharged and gave me a ride home. And I was so angry for being put in there in that situation that I was like, I'm going to show them. And so I went on like a 7-day binge, wouldn't return phone calls, nothing. And my brother finally got a hold of me, and he's like, I called this place in Cushing. It's called Valley Hope, which is a great rehab center. And I got you in if you'd be willing to go. And it's 30 days, and, you know, it's a great place. It's, you know, all this cool stuff and good food, and, you know, they'll get you squared away. And at that point, I was being evicted from my house. I had lost my car. So I knew I was going to be homeless, and I'd lost my kids. How I still had my job, I have no idea. So I thought, you know what, if you can have my brother square away the insurance and things with the school and make sure it was cool and all that stuff, I didn't have any place else to go, so why not try it?
Yeah.
And when I first got there, again, and I thought that they would teach me how to drink responsibly and fix whatever was wrong with me, and I would be okay. Still didn't realize I had a problem. The third day into rehab, and this is my rock bottom, because you think going through all that, you think that people would have didn't you see the writing on the wall? And I didn't. It wasn't enough for me to stop. And my counselor called me in, and she just said, I wanted to let you know that you have lost custody of your little kid, your little girl. You have lost rights to contact her by phone, write to her, text, email, in person. She has gone to court to remove everything from you. And that's when, for me, that was mine. And there was a chapel in Valley Hope, and I walked by it on the way back from her office to my room. And my thoughts were, I'm going to get my stuff, because you could leave anytime you wanted to. It wasn't a lockdown place. I'm just going to get my stuff, go to the road, hitch a ride, and I'm going to get hammered and screw this and just forget it. And for some reason, I went into the chapel, and I sit down on that front row, and I was just like, there's a crucifix, Jesus on the cross on the wall. And I just looked at it and just staring at it. And I finally just, one word, and it was help. And that's when it changed. It was like, it was that instant for me. Not that the alcohol or the alcoholism was gone, not that the desire to drink was gone, but I actually felt something inside of me lift me up. And like that hole, that void, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional about it, but that void was filled. And I was like, that's it. That's it. And for some reason I felt strong, and I felt worthy, and I felt, that there was some purpose for me, and that I needed to do something. And so I began to fight at that point. And I think that's the beginning of, me becoming a warrior, was right there. That I had something to fight for, and that I was worth it. So that's that's where I began recovery.
Absolutely beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing. I know how hard that is to do, and I know how many people you have just impacted by sharing that. So thank you so much. So you stay in rehab for the full 30 days?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
It was once my perspective on the whole thing shifted, and I realized that you got something wrong with you, you gotta fix it. This is one of those things that I knew I couldn't drink again. I could either have the life that I was leaving behind, or the life that was out in front of me. Of course, and it's been a complete, a day at a time growth process since then. And I've had to learn lessons hard, since. But it was that experience was absolutely amazing. But the one thing, especially my counselor kept telling me, was she just kept saying, you're going too fast, slow down. Mm-hmm. You can't get everything in 30 days. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be the best. And, when I was in athletics, I always wanted to be the best. And so that's the only way I knew, was to go big or go home. And so that's just what I was going to do.
Yeah. And,
I learned a lot of humility, through recovery. But even in recovery, I started to learn. She told me once, she goes, you're so good at helping other people, but you're terrible at helping yourself. And, that's still hard for me. It's so easy for me as as Kip Shubert words on purpose, if someone contacts me, it's so easy for me to share with them and listen to them and encourage them and support them. But, you know, when I'm feeling, you know, we all have our days where we're just down and it's too much, you're overwhelmed, or you're in fear or doubt or whatever, you know, it's hard for me to reach out to somebody because it's, and you know, it's, I don't look at it as being weak. It's probably pride, you know, and it's just, I'm supposed to be a warrior. I can't feel like this. And I just know if I keep it to myself, I'll get through it. But then something always comes up. Somebody will call and want to have lunch, or somebody will, you know, God has a way of working. And it's just, it gets me out of it. But
and I think that's such a big piece. That's such a core principle in recovery, is to seek community so that we can share, so that we can feel heard, so that we don't feel so alone in this. It's easy to isolate, and it's easy to just shove it away. And the hard work comes when we bring it out into the light and we look at it and we share our collective pain. We all go through things together, but that's what's so powerful about having a real recovery community that really understands.
And it's just something that I've learned too, that it's okay to be transparent. Yeah. You know, and the more I share about my own struggles, sometimes I, especially lately, it's like you need to pay attention more to what God's telling you instead of what you think He's telling you to tell everybody else. And apply that, because you know, the biggest part for me, I know, and the most impact I can have is living out and walking out what I believe and what I'm doing. That's where what I truly believe is going to come through in what I do anyway. And so it's just about, you know, getting up and doing what's right and going the extra mile and serving others and impacting others the best I can without worrying about what I'm saying necessarily. And, you know, let God take care of that. But it's just been that recovery process, and the rehab was great. But, you know, again, when you get out of rehab, it's just, for me, I was like, okay, I have no home. I have no car. I had a job, but how in the heck I'm going to get there? Where am I going to stay? And
so what happened? Tell us what happened when you left after 30 days in rehab.
I mean, there were some friends in rehab that lived in Oklahoma City. And so I began to kind of bounce around from couch to couch. And I stayed at the coach's office, some at school. And, you know, I just began to bounce around for I came back and taught the last month of school. And
I'm assuming that you're not sharing any of this with your students. I'm assuming that many of your does your fellow faculty know what?
Yeah, they knew. And my kids knew that I'd been gone for, you know, about 40 days before I came back. And I actually just right off the bat, without going into the gory details, used it. And it was very impactful. And I think it helped me a lot. It kind of gave me, again, I had a purpose. And so if I had a purpose, then I knew that I had to do it. I didn't have time to go drink or worry about those things.
Well, that, and also what I feel, and I don't know if you know my story at all, but I held on to the shame of recovery for so long, let alone the shame of addiction. I held on to the shame of recovery. I was so ashamed of letting people know that I was in recovery that I held on to it for over a decade after I got sober. And I love that you just right away almost were able to release a lot of the shame by just being honest right out of the gate.
Yeah, I think, I mean, all my shame centered on my past and when I was in the drinking. And for me at that point, I knew, you know, that, you know, let's talk about being honest and being open-minded and being willing, and those, you know, the how that you learn in recovery. And I just knew that I needed to be honest. And again, I didn't share with the kids the you know, details, but I let them know where I was and what I learned and what they needed to avoid, and started to use that. And I've continued to use that in my teaching and coaching. And that's grown the more I understand it and the more I've learned about it, and the more solid I got into my recovery, and the more time I got, you know, the better I was able to formulate that and to use that to help those kids. And
oh gosh, and I can only imagine how much better of a coach you must be now, even though you were already an amazing coach. In recovery, you're just able to pull so many more tools and be so much more authentic with your kids. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, before it was just non-natural ability, really. But I was always about the win. Really, it boiled down to I was about me. And I loved the kids, and the kids loved me, and I did a good job. But it was always, you know, what Kip could do.
So
You
your
know,
ego.
how many wins I could get, you know, this and that. And, you know, I was the state coach of the year in Oklahoma the last year I coached in 2008. And I dropped out of coaching altogether in 2008. We really cut into my drinking time, and I'd won a huge award. And I thought, what better, you know, for me, it was a cop out, but it was like, I can go out on top and just quit. And because I didn't want to ever finish anything. I mean, that self-worth, you know, thing was kicking in. But now it's completely different. It's not about the wins. It's not about me. It's about equipping those kids to learn how to win when they get out of there. Wow. And I tell them all the time, the winning isn't the scoreboard. It's not the trophies. It's not the recognition. It's taking care of the things that we need to take care of. You got to believe it. You got to speak it, and you got to go do it. You do those things, you win anyway, and the scoreboard will be in your favor. So it's just flipping that perspective and mindset, really, because my mindset was a loser mindset before, and when you flip it, it just makes things, instead of life being so gray, you notice every color, every sound, everything, and you see what's important, and you see what really matters. You know, it's allowed me to become such a better father as well. So
I'm so glad that you've been able to rebuild any of the relationships with your kids that might have been, you know, tense because of your addiction. I mean, obviously your eldest kid who was calling your parents saying, you need to parent your kid. I can't be parenting. Like, that's obviously got to play a role in your relationship. And do you want to talk about a little bit your relationship with your children now?
Yeah, my, you know, again, coming out of rehab and not having anything was very humbling, and I think I needed that. And I had to learn to grow through and rebuild, you know, everything. And at first, my oldest kids, my youngest son, he's a total hippie guy, and he's awesome. Played in the band, and he was more open to rekindling that relationship when I got out. My oldest, he was a little bit more apprehensive because he wanted to make sure that I was who I said I was. Yeah. And I was going to maintain doing what I was. Mm-hmm. With Camden, I was not able to see her for the first 2.5 years of my recovery. And, you know, a lot of it was financial for me. And then I didn't have the money to go to court. And I would contact her mother and her stepfather and, you know, all the time trying to tell them how I was doing, and if I was doing really well. My family was telling them, and it just, I think, you know, again, don't want to throw anybody on the bus, but it's just, she was happy with me being out, and, you know, and that was good. And so.
Well, and we can look at it from the perspective of the you know, of our spouses or whoever we've affected with our addiction. And, you know, they sort of look at the person with the problem as the problem, right? Like, it's hard for them to not see it in any other way. And so I think that that's very common, that people say, just if they can just get out of here and get treatment and figure that stuff out, then everything will be so much better over here. And there can be some truth to that. There can be some calming and things that can happen that are positive, but also addiction really does happen in families, within families, and we have to treat it that way.
Yeah, it's just kind of like that ripple effect, you know, and it just goes out and just compounds. But for me, it was just, you know, finding my faith again and and it's just like exercise physically with your body. I mean, if you don't exercise it, you don't practice it, you don't work it out, it's not going to grow. And it's just one of those things. I know that, number one, if God would have allowed me to see Cam within a couple of weeks after I got out of rehab, number one, I had no place for her to go to. You know, I didn't have a car to get her. I mean, and then as time grew on, for me being able to handle all those negative and toxic things that were in that relationship with my ex-wife, I wouldn't have been able to handle that early on. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the strength yet. I didn't understand myself enough, or, you know, the ability to forgive. And that forgiveness was for me, actually, not for her anyway. And I had to learn a lot of things, and my faith had to be strengthened. And so you know, it got to a point during that 2.5 years of not being able to see her. There was times where, you know, I would question God. And it's like, okay, dude, what else do I have to do? I mean, I can't do anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, towards the end of that time period, I was like, okay, enough's enough. I'm ready. And, you know, this is like an example of spirituality for me. But it was at church. There's a guy that is probably 20 years younger than me, but that I had watched him and his family, and he was a big guy. He was strong in his faith. He was just, his life seemed to be, from my perspective, you know, he lived what he said, and then he was just a powerful guy. And the service that night opened up for us to go have someone pray with us, and he was there. And so I went straight to him and told him, like, dude, you know, I got to have my little girl. I miss her. And he prayed. And then that next afternoon, my ex-wife called and said, "You want to see your daughter?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
That's how it works.
Yeah. And so it's just, you know, I met her that weekend and saw her, and then things have just grown, you know, since then. And so,
So I'm assuming you got your own place. You were still working. You obviously probably got another car, and
I ended up getting my own place. And when I got into the next school year and taught, you know, I knew that I was called to speak. So for me, you know, I'm going big or going home, and I got everything fast, and I took control of things. And I saw certain things that I wanted my life to be like. And, you know, I put God to the back seat, and I took over, and I quit my teaching job, and I was going to develop this public speaking business to save all the addicts and alcoholics all across the world. And, you know, and it nosedived real quick, and I ran out of money again. And, you know, I'm like, okay, seriously, you know, I'm doing what you want. And it's like, no, you're doing what you want. So again, I was given a good second lesson that I needed in humility. And I kind of tucked my tail between my legs, and I called my mom, and I said, "Hey, can I come to Tulsa?" You know, it's about an hour and a half from Oklahoma City. And in Oklahoma City is, you know, I still went to the bar actually when I got home from rehab, because I didn't have any other friends. And I went to AA, and then I'd go from AA to the bar. And I never drank. I never felt tempted to drink. In a weird way, it was the safest place for me to be at that time.
Yeah. Because
people were all around saying, "We're so proud of you. We're so proud of you." And I knew they were going to watch me, and I felt stronger there, and I felt a sense of purpose there. And you know, again, but, you know, when I was going to quit my job and do the speaking thing, you know, I knew that that's not where I was supposed to be, and I couldn't continue to stay there. And that's when I started to question, there's got to be something more. And so, of course, you know, me being in control, it was creating this, you know, huge business that I was going to run with no plan, no forethought, no money to do it with. So I was almost still thinking like the alcoholic me, and not, you know, like the person I would become. And but I ended up moving to Tulsa, and family let me stay with them a little bit, and I got a teaching job here, and just really kind of began to slow down and focus more on building my faith and exercising my faith and working on me, getting strong, you know, being able to fight every day, and just doing the things that were in front of me. And I knew that by doing that, if I continued to do it a day at a time, that the right doors would open up, and I was supposed to walk through them. You know, again, it's frustrating for me because I want it quickly, and I'm still like that. But it's taught me the discipline and, you know, and just the patience that I really needed. Yeah. You know, the word says that
being in the moment. I think that so many of us are rushing to the next thing. I think it's part of the addict's brain, and maybe a lot of other people's brains too, but just that wanting to get to the next thing, you know, that incessant.
Yeah. And it's just, and then, you know, after I was here a while and you know, kind of got my feet solid again, you know, I ran across Cindy, and we went to the same middle school together. when we were kids, and same high school, and we knew of each other, but we really didn't know each other. One of the funny things is that at our 20-year high school reunion, me and my second wife's room was right next to her and her husband's room.
So Cindy is your wife now.
Yes.
And you had known and you had known each other from when you were kids.
Yeah. And so our rooms were right next to each other, and we talked and stuff, but we didn't really, not really talk. We ended up partying in her room all night long. And that was 20-year reunion. But anyway, we just kind of crossed paths again. And, it was one of those things that for me at this point, I knew that what I needed was in here. I didn't need anybody else to complete me. I didn't need anybody else to affirm me. That's not where my identity lied. It lied in Christ. And so I was free at that point to actually give all of myself to something else. And I've been praying that God just would send me somebody that I could connect with and that would love me the way I wanted to love them, is the way I would always pray it. And we kind of crossed paths, and, she was going through a little bit of a hard time. She'd had a ex-boyfriend commit suicide a year earlier. And she was kind of there outside the house and all that. And I'd share my ugly stories and she would share hers, and we just kind of grew closer and closer. And then we ended up moving in together. And I think we were together 3 years before we got married this past May. But then things get going really good, and things are going really good, and life is just awesome. And then about this time last year, we went on vacation to Tennessee, and she was feeling really tired, and she's a big fitness buff and all that, and eating right and working out, and she just didn't have any energy. And so she went to the doctor, and she always does her yearly physical, which you need to do that, everybody. I don't, but she does. Thank God she did. But the doctor looked at her blood work. It's just like your total proteins are really high. It's probably something, stress or the way you're eating or hormonal or something. Let's let it go for a month, come back, get it checked. And she waits a month, goes back, and, still really high, or even higher than what it was. And he gave her an appointment with a specialist. Didn't really tell her what the specialist was until she called, and they answered it was St. Francis Oncology. That's you're gonna get me choked up again. But it was one of those things where it's like, cancer. And so she calls and goes in and has an appointment. They do some blood work. They take bone marrow from her, and they find out that she has a rare form of blood cancer called Waldenstrom's microbilemia. And like 1% of the population has it. And it's something that's incurable. Of course, we're starting to do the Google and, research it and all this stuff. And, it was just a crazy, crazy time. And when they diagnosed her, I think they diagnosed you on a Friday, technically.
Yeah, technically.
Diagnosed her on a Friday, and she went to have a port put in on Monday, and then she was in chemo on Thursday.
Oh
so
my
it was
God.
like, boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
And for me, it was just like, oh, seriously, after everything, and then, but that's when your faith kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, you will live and you will not die. And by his stripes, you were healed. This is done. We're going to beat it. And so we just took that approach and mentality from day one. And she went through the one thing that's really cool is the determining protein factor for this cancer. I don't know the actual name of the protein, but your normal level is below 270. And hers was 4,360 something.
Wow.
And so she started going through chemo, and then the first time we got it checked out for the first chemo, that protein had dropped to like 2,100. And it just kept dropping in half all the way through. And before she was through with her 6-month chemo, it was already back to where it was supposed to be.
Wow.
And she, after 6 months chemo, they checked her and they continued to check her again, and it's gone. It's, she's cancer free. So it's just, again, it's one of those things where I think for me, recovery allowed me to be able to have the tools and that warrior mindset to attack that. And she did the same thing,
and also that is, sorry to interrupt you, but I just have to say that feeling of, being able to just surrender, but also fight. Like, I think it's such a balance between those two. Yeah.
And for me, a lot of people I always would a lot of times say balance too, but I think it was more priority. And, it's just that we knew that we had to give it to God and leave it, and we could have no fear. We couldn't speak as though she had cancer. Because it's the same thing I preached, whether I'm on the soccer field or the classroom or to somebody who's wanting to get into recovery and get sober. It's you believe it, you speak it, and you do it. Mm-hmm. And it's just from, at first it was like getting hit in the mouth by Mike Tyson. It rocked us, it rocked me good anyway. But I just knew that, there was, we weren't brought together and brought to this point for it to end like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the saying, we didn't come this far, it only come this far.
Right. And so it's just, I knew that it was going to be just another opportunity for God to use, her recovery and her healing to help people. And so we just stood on that fact and we just walked right through it.
Wow. And I appreciate what you were saying about, we don't speak about it. We don't talk about it. We are just going to surrender this, and we are going to just believe and have faith. But at the same time, you weren't just saying all these things and not also looking to modern medicine to help her and to get her through it, right? Like, you were also doing the work of doing what needed to be done to get her healthy. So can we say hi to Cindy? I know I heard her there. Yeah. She's beside you, I think.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Oh my goodness, how lovely to meet you. I am so happy. You. I'm so happy that you're well today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What a journey that has been.
It's, yes, very much so. Crazy, but I feel great. I'm so blessed to be here, and just hope that I can help somebody get through the same thing if they need it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And is that your life mission now, is to really sort of use the experience of having cancer in your life to help other people going through it?
I think so. I mean, it's helped me just, I've been through things in life like we all have, but this kind of rocked me to my core too. I mean, who would have, I thought I was healthy. I sure tried to be. But that's not always the case. That's not always, you can be, fit and healthy and eat right, and still there are things that go wrong. And just helping people, trying to then help people through that and through the mind process and how to overcome.
Mm-hmm. It is so much about how we approach the problem, not necessarily how the problem presents. We all have shit in our lives. There's always going to be stuff that comes in. But
exactly.
It's about how we handle it and how we approach it. So well done. Congratulations, Cindy. Oh my gosh. I'm just so grateful that you're here, and I'm so happy that you're here helping other people as well. Can I ask you, were you also addicted at all to alcohol? Was that something that was a part of your story?
No, I, probably like most people I drank and had, experimented with drugs as I was younger, but not really ever an addiction issue. Kip had mentioned that my boyfriend had committed suicide a year before we had met again. I probably drank a little too heavily during those times for sure. So honestly, probably had I not met Kip, had we not hooked back, no, I say hooked back up, had we not, that sounds terrible.
That's what all the kids are saying.
Had we not met again. Who knows? It could have become part of my story. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'm actually blessed that things kind of worked out the way they did in that situation. So I didn't go off the deep end, because I was struggling.
I absolutely believe that people come into our lives for a reason, and certainly I feel this in this case. I think what I'll do
Yes.
now is I'm going to ask both of you then. So for Kip, I'll start with you. I have a couple of questions I want to ask. I want to know, other than your faith, which is obviously paramount in your life, what are some other tools you use in recovery? Do you still go to 12-step meetings, or how do you do it?
I don't go to 12-step meetings anymore. I mean, not very often when I do. If some of my friends are speaking at a meeting or something, they'll call up and ask me to come, and I'll go. For me, it is continued exercising of my faith, and that is being very hooked up and plugged into my church.
Mm-hmm.
I never was a morning person before, ever. But since getting sober, I've been doing this daily for probably the last 3 years. I get up at the crack of dawn or earlier, depending on what time I have to leave to go to work or what's going on. And I will go outside, even when it's cold, and I spend about an hour just reading and in prayer and meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that gets my day started. And it gives me, it's just making sure that the word is ingrained in my heart so that when things come up, I can speak it, and that's been vital for me.
Mm-hmm.
Being connected. There's different men's groups and Bible studies that I go to.
Yeah.
We ran a recovery group out of our church last year we did 2 12-week sessions, and I ran it. And it's just staying connected that way. Doing the Warriors on Purpose stuff.
Being of
much as I can.
service. You are so much about being of service. Yes.
And this staying in, plugged into teaching and coaching. I think the more I can be doing all that I can and going the second mile for other people and really doing the best that I can in what I do, it keeps me out of having to worry about that, because you still get those voices, or that, the enemy, or however you want to term it. You still get those feelings of doubt and lack of self-worth, and can I really do this? And I've had that. I don't get them as much anymore, but even through the building of the Warriors on Purpose, community and things, it's like there's days where I'm like, really, what are you doing? Can you really do this? But then, when I started to speak a lot more lately at schools and churches, and like I told Cindy, I did a deal in Oklahoma City at a school, and I thought it was going to be about 100 people, and it was actually about 700. And so I was just like, oh my God. Wow. And I had to go in the bathroom, and it's like, you have the mind of Christ. You do not have the spirit of fear. You have a spirit of power. This is what you're supposed to do. And when I got up to the podium, I just left my notes at the podium and took off, and I don't know what happened, but I just spoke.
He did fantastic.
And on the way home, driving home from that, I told her, I was like, that's the first time I felt at home. Or like, back or something. I felt so strong doing that. But that's just that sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. And one of my really good friends that I met in recovery online, his name is Daniel Maurer. I don't know if you know Daniel at all. And it was between him and Mark Goodson, actually. Mark Goodson has the Miracle of the Mundane. And me and Daniel and Mark were talking about a lot of things early on when I was developing the Warriors on Purpose in the blog. And me and Daniel were specifically talking about purpose. If people know why they're here and what they're here for, then just our human nature wants to perfect that and pursue that and seek that. Mm-hmm. And when we know what it is, we can go after it. It's when we don't know what it is and we lose that we go after other people. Mm-hmm. We go after alcohol, we go after drugs, we go after pornography, we go after sex, we go after, whatever it is.
Yeah. And
so to me, that's where the Warriors on Purpose came from. I want to fight intentionally, and I want to live with intent and on purpose instead of just by the seat of my pants like I was for 46 years of my life.
Mm-hmm. Cindy, I would love to ask you, how has cancer changed you?
Oh, I'm probably, I don't really want to say more positive, because I've always kind of been an optimistic person. But it's probably changed me spiritually to see that God really does work, even in my little life, in little things and big things. I kind of, what I was telling him the other day is, it seems like I'm noticing more of the little things. Instead of getting lost in the big picture or, you know, the outcome down the line, I'm more into the now, more into what's the word everyone says? Being present. Thank you. You know, be present now. Worry about today. Worry about this moment. Yeah. And do the best I can in that moment. Yeah. And then keep moving forward. I think that's probably been the biggest lesson, because I'm more of a big picture, what's the outcome going to be, instead of probably being present and worried about what can I do right now this second.
Yeah, I love that lesson so much, because it relates, we can all relate to that. I think so many of us are thinking about the future, or we're lamenting the past, or worrying about things, or it's like, and we forget that the only time that we really ever have is right this moment. And our life happens in moments. And if we forget to remember that, 10 years have gone by and we didn't enjoy so many of those beautiful, tiny little human moments that we could have enjoyed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What a wonderful lesson. I mean, I hate that you had to go through that, but my goodness, what a beautiful lesson that is. It's almost funny when you were saying about your personality, that sort of the visionary, the big picture, and it's like, that was Kip too. So it's almost like you've both been able to support each other. Yeah, to be able to bring it back into the present moment.
Yes.
You know, not everything has to be happening right this minute, right now.
Exactly.
Well done. Kip, I have another couple of questions for you. I want to know, what is the best thing about being sober?
I hate to sound like a broken record, but being present. You know, I don't miss moments anymore, because I can't be there, or don't want to be there, or I'm too hungover to be there. It's being able to wake up every day and feel like I'm worth something. And I think that sense of self-worth, and that feeling, that knowing that I'm here for a reason, and that I belong, and that I'm good enough. I don't have to be what Cindy wants me to be. I don't have to be what my players want me to be, or the parents in the booster club want me to be, or even the online community. I don't have to be who they want me to be. I have to be who I'm created to be, and be a better version of that every single day that I can. And there's some days I do good at it, some days I don't. But it's just knowing that, I think, has allowed, I mean, recovery and being sober has allowed me to find that purpose and self-worth. And it's allowed me to be present, and just it's amazing to enjoy life with color instead of being gray. You know?
What a beautiful way to put it. Kip, you've probably answered this already with what you just shared, but I will end our conversation today. I borrow this question from Oprah. Kip Shubert, what do you know for sure?
I know that God is real. I know that as long as I trust in Him and don't lean on myself, that the path before me is going to open up as it should. And that if I seek Him with everything that I got, then He's going to reward me with the things that He needs me to have so that I can make an impact. It may not necessarily be the things that I want, material things, but it may. You know, He's going to provide me the things and the tools and the people that I need to impact others and fulfill purpose, as long as I just seek after Him and rely on Him. And you know, that's what I know for sure. And I also know one thing that's really cool about, and this is both of our third marriage.
Sure.
And third time's a charm, they say. So there you go. But man, recovery and being sober has allowed me to be able to love, because I can love her unconditionally. I want hers back, but it's not conditional on what she does. And so when we got married, we made a covenant with each other. And how we term it is, we went into a room with no exits. And so being in that room with no exits, if you go into it with that mindset and you make that conscious choice, then you're together forever. And you'll do whatever it takes to get things worked out when things are rocky. And you'll do whatever it takes to continue to cultivate it when it's great.
Yes.
And it's just being able to have that mindset. You know, I know my God is real, and I know that we're in covenant with each other. And it's not just a physical thing. It's a mental thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's just one of those things where we are now yoked together to go do this purpose thing together. And at the same time, we get to love each other, which is just a bonus. So.
What a bonus. Oh my gosh, what a bonus it's been for me to get to sit down and enjoy sharing some time with both of you. Thank you both so much. You definitely have kept me in the present moment. You've kept me mindful that that's the only thing that we ever really have. You two are both incredible warriors, and I thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
To get access to all of the free videos and interviews, visit sobrietystartshere.com.